How you doing, everybody? This is Exennial Thought, and I recently just got back from a little hunting thing. I mean, I didn't go very far. I basically just went behind my parents' house. There's this forest, and um, it's actually really close to town. It's pretty much in town, but I looked, I did some research, and I found out that it's designated forest land, and the owners of it, it's some investment group that's based in Louisiana, and there's no signs anywhere that say you can or cannot hunt. And and there was no number to call. There's no email. There's no contact information from this group. I think it's just a invest. Probably a couple people who just pull together their money and buy up land and then flip it at some point. Anyways, designated forest land, and it's within the county. It's within hunting zone. So um, as far as I know, it's legal to hunt, and I'm positive it's pretty positive it's legal to hunt with a bow. But because it's close enough to houses, you can't use a rifle. So anyway, I went back there last weekend, and I set up a little blind kind of on this rock that overlooks where these two deer tracks cross. And I just went up there with my bow, and it's probably about 33, 34 degrees out. And I just sat there for about 2 hours. This is the first day I went out. This is in general archery, late general archery season for the state I live in. And so I just sat there, and then I was just kind of scanning back and forth, taking my time. And 2 hours later, the big doe just snuck up right behind me. And it was literally like 10 or 15 yards behind me, just staring at me. And so right away, my heart starts beating fast. I'm like, oh shit, like, what do I do now? So it kind of would have normally walked on this trail to the left of me, maybe 10 yards. But it kind of veered off further left. So it was about 20 yards, 25 yards to my left. And then I just slowly picked up my bow and pulled up and then shot. And then I hit it. It wasn't a very good shot, so I feel bad, but it hit its leg. And then it ran off. And then I tracked it through these trees, probably about 100 yards away. And then I got within about 20 yards of it, and it was kind of limping. So I took another shot at it. I missed it completely. It ran off, and then kind of in these other thick trees about 150 yards away. So I tracked it up in these other trees, and it was kind of near this rock. And then I snuck up through these trees, and my heart's still beating. I'm kind of like, just calm down, Nate, just calm down. And so I shot at it again through these trees. I hit it square in the chest, and I think it hit its sternum because it made a loud noise, like a pop, and it didn't go in very deep. And it kind of like stuck out, but deer ran off, and then I lost it. I looked for like another hour and a half before it got dark. I'm kind of doing this big circle looking all around the area where I thought it ran off to, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, well, shit, that really sucks. That's just really unfortunate. And I just called it a night because I was cold. It's dark now. I went back home, and then I told my buddies, I was like, man, I shot this deer, and I know I hit it twice. Like, I couldn't find it, though. I feel so bad. And they said, yeah, just get back out there, as soon as you can the next day and look for it. So I did around lunchtime the next day. Overnight, it was probably high 20s, low 30s. And so I went back out there and I started looking around. And within 20 minutes, I found it. And it was below this tree, and it was already dead. And the arrow wasn't sticking out of his chest. I didn't know where the arrow was, so I lost the arrow. But it looks like the wound in the leg was the one where it killed it, and so it died from that. And then I was like, well, so this is my first deer I've ever gotten hunting rifle, hunting arrow, bow, rifle, whatever. I've been out rifle hunting one other time up in far north near Canada, and I've been bow hunting 2 different times unsuccessfully. No, 2 or 3 other times unsuccessfully. And this is the first time I've gone out bow hunting and gotten something. And it's my first deer that I've ever gotten, ever. And so I had my knife with me. I said, well, I got this thing. So I got it out in the field, and then I went back to my parents' place, and I got a wheelbarrow, and I walked back in the woods. So it's maybe almost a mile back. And then threw this deer, like hoisted this deer in this wheelbarrow, and then dragged it back. And then my dad got home, and he helped me skin it because he used to do that when he was a kid. Back in Minnesota, he used to trap like muskrats and skunks and beavers all the time, and he would skin them and he'd sell the pelts. I mean, this is back in the 1960s, And so he helped me skin it. I finished gutting it, so all the guts I had already taken out, but you still got to get the heart and the lungs. So I got the heart and the lungs out, and then we skinned it. I trimmed it up a little bit, and then we just hung it. And we cut the head off. We hung it, so you let it hang for 5 to 7 days or 5 to 10 days, and at this point it's like low 30s, high 20s. It's cold, and I basically let it hang the rest of the week for just to let the meat age and also to hopefully improve the flavor. I don't know if it's going to taste really amazing or if it's going to be okay, but we'll see. But all week long it was like below freezing. I think it was definitely low 30s, and some days it was like high 20s, and overnight a couple nights got to like 19, 20 degrees. So it was pretty much a freezer outside. So I don't know if it's going to really age much. It might just be frozen, but nonetheless, I let the carcass hang for about 6, 7 days, 6.5 days. And then I brought it into a butcher. Normally I would just butcher it myself. I have no problem doing that. My brother got a couple deer a few years back in Idaho, and they were really good. I think they just ate wheat all day out in the fields in the farmland. And he brought those back, and we butchered those up and made sausages with bacon. And then we also had the steaks, and it was excellent. But the deer, since it sat overnight, even though it was cold, it did sit overnight, and the inside of the body's going to stay warm. When I gutted it, it was still warm inside, so it might have died that morning before I found it. But it was just because it sat overnight, I'm probably being paranoid, but I just wanted to make sure that all the meat is okay and there's nothing growing funky stuff around the joints or the neck or anything. So I just brought it into a butcher, and I just told him the situation. I said, listen, I think it's fine. It sat overnight, and then I gutted it, and it was cold out. But just you guys know what you're doing. You'll know what to look for if anything's bad. And so I'm going to get steaks, breakfast sausages, and Italian sausage, and some hamburger out of it. So I expect to get probably 35 to 40 pounds of meat off of it. And it was a really crazy experience, I think. And I know a lot of people, hunters have been doing this for a long time and probably taken down countless different animals. But the first time, it's like, it's intense. It was intense to do it, and it's very primal, very primitive. But it's also kind of amazing in a weird way. It's like, I don't know, it just kind of puts you back into this mindset where you're just kind of going off of instincts, and you're really in the moment, and you're really focused. And it's like this intense experience. And so I think overall, hunting is like kind of a mixed bag, I think, for me. I think some people absolutely love it. Some people think it sucks. I think it is a mixed bag. And I think I'll go through the highs and the lows of doing it. So in one respect, I would say there's some shitty aspects and some really amazing things. So the amazing things are, I just love going in the woods no matter what. So just sitting out in the woods, I have no problem with that. It was a lot of fun, even though it was cold. It was cool. Actually shooting the animal is really fun, because you're trying to shoot a moving target or slowly moving target, and it requires a lot of focus, and it's very intense, and you're trying to stay calm, and you're trying to get a good shot off. That's really cool. Tracking the deer and trying to chase it down is really cool. That's also really intense. It's a really amazing kind of thing to do. I don't particularly like killing animals, so that was hard. The next day, seeing the dead deer, it's like, I'm really relieved that I found the deer. I'm really glad I found it, so I can get the meat from it and make use of it. But it's also, I'm a sensitive person, so I was a little bit sad, I guess. Even though it's totally natural, totally normal, and we've been doing it since the dawn of time. That's what we do. We're hunters, right? People eat meat. Most people eat meat. And I think it's a normal, natural thing, but I'm a sensitive person, and maybe it's because I haven't grown up doing it or haven't done it enough, and so doing it for the first time was a little bit sad. Maybe that's why. But nonetheless, I don't particularly like killing things, and so I felt a little bit sad, I guess, because it was a living thing that's now dead. But I was thankful for the deer giving its life. And then the gutting part was kind of like not amazing. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but it's interesting, but it's also kind of like, it was kind of smelly, and it's just a bunch of guts that you're pulling out of a deer. So I wouldn't say that was like amazing. And then dragging the deer out of the woods in a wheelbarrow and trying to throw it in a wheelbarrow. I don't know how much it weighed, probably over 120, 150 pounds. So that wasn't that fun. I mean, that was kind of exhausting to do that. And then the skinning I think is fun. I like skinning, and then cleaning it up and just trimming it. I thought that was really fun. And then butchering the deer in the past with my brother, I thought that was really fun too. Like I enjoy that. I think it's really interesting, and it's just kind of an artistic aspect to it, almost like you're sculpting. So that's cool. And then the eating the meat I think is going to be rewarding. I think that's really cool and interesting. So overall, I think it was kind of a mixed bag, and overall I think it's cool though, and I think I'll probably do it again. If I go hunting again with a bow, I think I would rather try and go elk hunting. I know hunting is way harder. It's way more relentless and intense. I've been out elk hunting before with friends in Montana, and not hunting, just tagging along with hunters. And we hiked way up in the rattlesnake wilderness in Montana, way up in the Cabinet wilderness, and we were camping up on the top of mountains and on ridges. And that was really tiring and super intense, and but really cool. If I go elk hunting again, I don't know if I'll be partial to archery or rifle. I don't think I'll care so much. I'll probably try and do both seasons just to get an elk. But I'd like to get an elk just because I know that elk is better tasting meat, and you also get a lot more of it. So if there's a way I can get an elk next season, a doe or a buck, or not a buck, a doe or a bull, I don't know if I'll really be too partial. I'd rather just I think I'd rather get better meat and more of it, and just have 6 months worth of high quality meat. And this deer, if I get 40, 45 pounds off of it, it'll last me 3 to 6 months, I'm sure. But I've had venison before, and I've had elk before, and elk is just bar none. I mean, the best meat I've had, I think, is pretty much elk, and I've had some really good pronghorn. As far as animals in that class or whatever it is. I know pronghorn's different class or order than elk. I can't remember. They're kind of a weird evolutionary offshoot, and they have really distant relatives. So, yeah, that was my first successful hunting experience, and it was crazy. So, if you have any comments or questions, or if you like my story, feel free to like and feel free to follow. And talk to y'all later. Bye.